everyone. And can I say congratulations to Elise? That was fantastic, and I echo your sentiments. I was just saying to Mark 2 weeks ago, I was at Clyde Park. Their wine is outstanding, and I saw that space, so it was wonderful to see it all in action, so well done. Staff scholarship, a really, really important part, I think, of the conference, and also a wonderful chance to hear from, people within the industry and the Bureau themselves and actually, get ideas, share ideas. And so I've enjoyed being a part of it, as I know Jen and Qantas have too. But I have the great pleasure of introducing Sam, who won last year's scholarship and is going to share her project with us. And for her, I think it was such a great idea. It was all about how do you leverage the opportunity of a major event, such as the Commonwealth Games, which is happening in the Gold Coast next year. How do you leverage an opportunity like that to get more business events out of a major event? And so she travelled to Scotland and, dug deep in regards to speaking to Glasgow and also Edinburgh, which was a very smart idea, about how they did it. So Sam, welcome.
Ooh, I'm very nervous. I'll try and... I just wanted to start off by saying thank you. Thank you, AACB, thank you, Tourism Australia, and thank you, Qantas Australia. I could not believe that I won this award last year. It was so exciting. I still can't believe it. And I just want to urge anyone out there who has perhaps not been successful, hasn't put something forward, to do it. It is a once-in-a-million opportunity, and I'm just very grateful that I got to do it. So if you haven't done it, do it. We're very lucky. My project is on large-scale business events legacy, as Penny explained. So here we go. So the presentation that I've got running whilst I'm speaking is just going to click over, basically. So it's going to take you through the journey that I took when I went to Scotland to explore business events legacies after the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2014. So that was what I was there to investigate. The slides will just roll automatically, as I said. Some of them are of unique spaces that I went and got to see. Some are of all year world history. And look out for the young Scottish lass at the end in the Highlands, if you see her. Okay, so I will get started. Bit of Scottish flavour to start it off. This is one of the castles that I went to, Aline Doonan Castle. And this is actually a video that I took. I'm pretty proud of it. So the Gold Coast will play host to the Commonwealth Games in 2018. It's been held from the 4th to the 15th of April. Let's do that. It's the largest event the Gold Coast has ever seen. It's the the largest sporting event Australia has seen in the last decade. We'll have 1 billion viewers watching worldwide. So Glasgow held the last Games, as I mentioned, in 2014 in July. I went over there to find out, and they did increase their business events post-Games, and I went over there to find out how did they do that. I conducted interviews with the Glasgow Convention Bureau, Edinburgh Marketing, Visit Scotland, and I also sat on the Gold Coast 2018 Tourism Legacy Committee, and I'm part of the workshops moving forward as well. I just wanted to see what synergies there were with tourism and how we could work together. It's important to note that all the stakeholders that I interviewed in Scotland all said that the purpose-built venues and the new infrastructure for the Games increased the confidence of the city's ability to hold major events. So it brought in the 1.5 billion viewers, and being centre stage and the makeover of the city brought in £100 million worth of sporting and cultural events, and the Glasgow Bureau brought in a further $45 million worth of conferences to that as well. The good news is that we are already on our way with some of the programs being implemented already to the state of Queensland and Gold Coast. So we're already on our way to having a great legacy post-Games. Now, the 6 different programs that I recommended from my research are a customer service initiative which we are calling the Be My Guest program, aimed at business events, a greeters program aimed at business events delegates, a destinations leaders program for welcoming business events delegates to the city, accessible tourism program for business events, and lastly, the Australia House program. So I don't have time to cover all of these today, so I'm only going to talk about 3 or 4. I'm mixing a couple in. And I have written a full report if you want it. I'm happy to share it with you. It's very long, but detailed. So accessible tourism, wheelchair users, hearing loss, visually impaired or mentally impaired, and a whole host of other access requirements all come under the umbrella of accessible tourism. So this section of people accounts for 8 billion or 11% of Australia's overall tourism expenditure. So Scotland saw the huge potential in this sector with economic benefits which were estimated to be worth $325 million to their economy. So this prompted Visit Scotland a year out before the Games to fund a accessible online tourism program. They spent £45,000, not a lot compared to what it brings in an economic impact. So the industry was ready to take that market on and to their advantage. This saw, specifically for business events, an inclusive and accessible events guide for event organisers was made available online and still is online. So it's still very much a work in progress in Scotland. Glasgow have been able to secure 2 large accessible events post-Games, and they're still working on the strategy around welcoming and training the hospitality staff when they come to the city next year in 2018. So Visit Scotland were a huge, huge champion. They talked about it quite a lot through our interviews. And they often work with the venues and the hotels to bring them up to the standard, which is now legislation in Scotland. So that was interesting. Another key deliverable for the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games Legacy Committee is the Be My Guest program. Glasgow also recognised how important visitor satisfaction was during the Games for repeat business. So they introduced a customer service initiative called Glasgow Welcomes, which was online training. They were able to reach 600 businesses. They trained 40,000 frontline hospitality and transport staff and 15,000 volunteers. So the Gold Coast Tourism, which is my organisation I work within, already working on a program called Be My Guest, which has been rolled out across the Gold Coast and the wider state of Queensland. They took a lot of ideas from Glasgow Welcomes, which was great. It's a website full of resources with maps, cultural insights, face-to-face workshops we do as well as online training and a monthly Be My Guest Awards. Another program I'm going to talk about is city activation and dressing. Glasgow Convention Bureau continues after the Games to dress their cities for large international conferences, and they work with the contractors in the city to put up banners. They've actually got a large wrap on one of the buildings that they can use for large conferences as well, and it's right in the city centre. You can actually purchase as a client, if you're not deemed a large international conference, you can purchase a pop-up stand within the airport as well. So they do those, and they'll often man them with volunteer staff or students. So the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games activation or city dressing, pretty much a lot of it is under wraps and confidential, so I can't share everything with you, but there is something I can share, and it's the introduction of Visitor Information Centre relocatable pods, which are basically shipping containers which will be set up around the Gold Coast, and they'll be interactive, face-to-face, lots of digital, and there'll be destinations, so Gold Coast as a destination, but they'll also talk about the Games as well. After the Games, these pods will need to be leased, so we're hoping to be able to use that in a conferencing sense. Australia House. So when I spoke with actually quite a few of the partners in Scotland, they talked about the Scotland House, which was actually a partnership between the various organisations within Scotland, and it was right in the centre of the action in the city centre during Commonwealth Games. There was a total of 91 events which was hosted in Scotland House over that period. 1,000 delegates were attracted and included national and international leaders. The Convention Bureau was front and centre. They took the lead on the program. and they held regular meetings and communication around Scotland House and what would happen there. There were no familiarisations run during the Commonwealth Games because it was deemed a bit risky because of how busy it would be. So all of the business took place in this Scotland House. So a series of doing business events were run, which included 700 delegates, and it all linked back to Scottish businesses and the Commonwealth markets. The universities were also front and centre, and they were able to run events around topical research and showcase their innovations as well. So it was really there to show Scotland's strengths and the different industries which they do well in. Some of these included tourism and events, low carbon industries, engineering, higher education. They've got 4 universities in Glasgow alone. So particularly for business events, it was a way for them to showcase the uniqueness of the destination as well, and then gather and new business opportunities and make those connections. So plans for the future. Sorry, that was a bit loud. Firstly, some of the initiatives will form part of my professional development moving forward, and it'll be the responsibility of our business events team as well to drive these. Accessible tourism is another key deliverable for the GC 2018 Tourism Legacy Committee, and we are already working towards that through Gold Coast Tourism. We, as a team, business events are consulting on specific conferences that we're bidding on coming to the city. So we're already consulting with our team within Gold Coast Tourism and talking about those needs. So there is an opportunity to drive this further and increase the standard of guest service. So we've got a central Be My Guest program, which I explained before. I'm just recommending that this be a central source for accessibility as well, and for it to cover both leisure and business events. Our team have already secured 2 accessible conferences through this process. Further work is needed, but as I mentioned, we're working with our corporate affairs and strategy team to move this forward. The City Activation and Dressing Program, I think as more information comes forward, I will be able to link that to business events, just like with the visitor information pods. How can we lease those for conferences moving forward? So anything else that comes up, I'll work as it comes on. My recommendation is that we work with our economic development team within the Gold Coast City Council to identify those relevant organisations who could work together to make our own Australia House during the Games, to regularly meet and discuss how we would do that strategy moving forward. I hope you enjoyed my journey. It wasn't very long, I'm sorry, but as I mentioned, I've got a report, so you can refer to that if you would like. I hope there were some takeaways. There definitely was for me. I'm going to be back there trying to implement things, getting in people's faces and doing the poke, I guess. And I'm going to be working hard to implement them, and all at the end result to increase business events. So bring on the Games. Yeah.